Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes.
Good morning, everyone. It
Good
is Dan
morning.
Fox and Andre Karkamaz. We are Therapy Dudes. We've got a very exciting follow-up to last week's podcast, which is going to be exploring in more detail the relationship that we have with our parents and how that plays out in our intimate relationships and our partnership later on in life.
Mm.
So, the way we were sort of experiencing relationship, the attachment style, the communication style with our parents, and how understanding that can help inform and make more conscious our behaviors and interactions with our partner as an adult.
Yeah, complicated topic. I mean, so much comes out of how we felt growing up in terms of in relation to our parents, and it formed our attachment, really. So,
Right. Yes, which often creates our attachment style later on with relationships, right? Like the way we bonded and attached with our parents is
yeah.
very much how we do things later on. Um, Boulder Psychological Services is a great organization. They are sponsoring us and they are there to help you. Check them out at boulderpsychologicalservices.com. Andre,
Yes.
I was listening to our podcast from last week
Hmm.
and I decided I was going to, get out of the gate by just bringing up something that you said
Oh God. What did
that
I say?
you said that what was modeled for you with your parents was stay in the relationships no matter what, even if it's not healthy or functional. And that mostly what you had learned was what not to do as you were witnessing your parents, in their marriage. Would you like to elaborate on that for us?
Oh God. Yeah. Well, what I witnessed growing up was roommates. Like my
Hmm.
parents were like roommates. There wasn't any intimacy or affection. There was lots of acts of service. Um, and it felt to me like, you know, um, I had to do something extra to secure, feeling that sense of intimacy with people because I watched my mom try to do that constantly with my dad. And I kind of took more after her because she would talk to me about all her feelings from a young age.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my dad was the avoidant one, and he just wanted to brush everything under the rug. So what I learned was, you know, stick in it and keep trying. And your needs don't really matter. And if you don't feel fulfilled, that's okay, because all that matters is that we're all together. And it's been really hard for me because I have entered relationships where I felt like over time, I don't feel like there is maybe a certain form of intimacy or care. I don't feel like certain things are happening that I would like to see more of, like, closeness in general. And then I end up doing some of the things that I watched my mother do, which was I explain myself a lot. I explain the feelings that I'm having or where it's coming from. I'll use like examples, but I typically would um, attract women who are avoidant, like my father. And so, what not to do, stop trying to change people. They're going to show you how they do relationship. And if they want to change, they'll show you that early on. And if they don't, you have to ask yourself, what part of my programming is keeping me in this relationship?
Right.
Right?
Right. And I think this you're like keying into this concept that I think is it's sort of counterintuitive, which is that, you know, if somebody who is like got that insecure attachment, right, they need constant reassurance, they need lots of check-ins.
Hmm.
One might think that, they would connect with somebody who's similar, who also needs lots of reassurance and constant check-ins so they could form this nice codependent bond. And that does happen sometimes.
Sometimes.
But there is also this kind of pull towards the familiar. And a lot of times when our parents have that sort of like, there's an insecure attachment style on one hand, and then the other parent is kind of avoidant,
Right.
then you just watch that play out constantly, where like one parent is trying to like get reassurance and connection, the other parent is sort of like distant. And even though that doesn't feel good, it like makes sense. It's
It's what you're used to.
familiar.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't even necessarily seem like it's a problem, especially like in your situation, you connected with your mom who was in that sort of like needing more reassurance and connection piece. And so at a young age, it's not like we're making a judgment and being like, well, that's not fair. This should be different. We're just noticing how it plays out. And there's just a
Right.
certain logic to it and certain things to notice and certain
Well,
behavior.
you're adapting to their nervous system too, and their way of thinking about things. So if you attach to one side more than the other, one parent more than the other, that parent's way of viewing the world is the way you're going to adopt viewing the world.
Right. Right. So it's easy to then kind of replicate that later on, right? We might accidentally, if we're witnessing that growing up, attached to somebody who has that avoidance style because it's like we know what to do. We know that that's familiar. We've seen the model, and it just kind of makes sense how to play that out.
Right.
We're in an insecure attachment, and somebody else is also insecurely attached, right? And we're trying to connect with them. It doesn't mean suddenly we're going to be like super codependent and just able to
No.
take care of each other's needs. The insecurely attached person is going to see the other person seeking reassurance and not trust it and just be like, oh, well, like they must be faking it. They must be putting it right. There's this whole lot
Well,
of psychology expecting that messages aren't going to be consistent and that the person's
absolutely.
actually not going to be available. So it's hard to trust it when somebody is showing up and being like, no, I need you. It's like,
Yes.
they're going to let me down.
Well, there's two sides to that, right? Like that's one version of what happens, and I actually agree with that. Another version, and I've experienced this myself, and I really didn't like it, but it's a mirror. We are unconsciously wired these ways, so we don't notice like how it's playing out until someone else shows us. And sometimes someone else will hold up a mirror by acting out the same things that you feel and do in a relationship, but they might even do it worse or,
Yeah,
in a way that's more off-putting. And that mirror makes you feel kind of disgusted almost because it's like, oh, that feels familiar. That's yucky. That's the part of me I don't like,
right.
right?
Right.
And I've definitely experienced that with insecure people in relationship, even friendship, it's like, oh, come on. So the reason why we need the opposite type of attachment or a secure attachment or something when you're an insecure attachment is because you're still looking to play out that uh, the ending of that. You want closure. You want to see that you can win that over, right? You want
Yeah.
the avoidant person to show that they care.
Yes.
And you can't see when they show that they care because you want it in a very specific way,
Yeah.
right? And so this is the problem. Go ahead.
So I feel like the trick in these dynamics is that just getting a cognitive awareness of like, oh, this is what's happening is not nearly sufficient to,
No,
stop the behavior, right?
absolutely not. Yeah,
It's like there can be a cognitive awareness for what I'm doing wrong shooting a basketball, but it's wired into my like physical habits, right? So it's not like, oh, just knowing what I'm doing wrong or watching somebody do it the right way is going to help. I have to like practice again, 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 and become more and more conscious of the moments where this is coming up, right? And this plays out in relationships too. When early on as a therapist, if I was helping somebody with like their relationship, me being kind of like, more on the avoidant side, right? Like if something's off, just take off. You don't need them. Just, go do it on your own, right? That kind of like aloof confidence in a relationship was something that, would be like what I led with in terms of advice for the person in the situation. It's like, oh, they're worried that, somebody's not actually paying enough attention to them or being kind to them or interested in them. And if they had grown up with like this insecure attachment style, they'd be playing that out in the relationship. So me just being like, oh, well, if they're ghosting you, just go off and do something else. Like you don't need
Right.
to, right? Like that's not
That's not what's going to help because that kind of logic is not what's playing out. What's playing out is an emotional wound.
right, right,
Yeah. And that emotional wound is so pervasive. I mean, it will, if we think about it from the structure of like how we're packed animals, right? You will feel like you're not, it will be a fight or flight experience.
yeah,
You will feel like you're going to be left behind. And that really, like thousands of years ago, that meant death
right,
for
right,
for our species, right? Like and species in general that are communal. So that's the problem is like this is a visceral experience, not a logical experience. It's an emotional experience that can't be like articulated necessarily. And
right,
people can try to bypass it by speaking logic. But really what needs to be implemented is emotional regulation, reframing, connecting with that wounded part of you and offering to it what it needs from that other person that they're not getting.
right, right. Which all of those steps I think are extremely important. It requires an ability to like in the heat of the moment kind of slow down, right? And feel what you're feeling, bring some understanding to it, and try to provide what you need and have an intention of how you want to be. And this I think is a really tricky but important part of our psychology is that emotions, when we have an experience, happen extremely quickly. The logical brain is much slower in terms of coming up with some sort of logical explanation and all of that. And oftentimes, the logic will just follow as an explanation for the emotional feeling.
Absolutely.
So even if, like, in some abstract way, we've thought about our attachment style and things like that, in the moment, we're still going to have the same habitual emotional reaction. And the immediate logic that we bring to that isn't going to be, oh, take a breath. You're just feeling this because of your attachment style, right? It's going to be this kind of logic that sort of explains or justifies your feeling from that old habitual
Right.
vantage point.
And you're going to
So,
be in fight or flight. So you're not going to be thinking logically, period.
yes, yes, right? So, how do we practice for those situations? Or what do we want to practice in those situations? Like, what's the way to actually do the work to not be sort of forever condemned to play out our history of early relationships?
That's a really good question. And I think a lot of it actually happens to be proactive healing. Like you're not going to really find a way. If you're really embedded in these patterns, and you've seen me in this, Dan, like you've seen me have a few moments in life where I'm a little overwhelmed and it's hard for me to come back. And you've helped me come back by just being present with me, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
And so the wound is abandonment, right? And the wound is a fear of not being good enough, that kind of stuff. So being present with some, like having a support system that is non-judgmental and not exhausting them with by constantly going to them, right? But that's one thing you can set in place, you know. Another thing is proactively finding and healing this wound inside of you, you know. What is the narrative? What part of you is feeling this way? How come this feels like a trap, like you're trapped in a cycle, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, and if we could just play out a little bit of um some of like my end of experiencing that with you,
Yeah,
because we've like been trained and we know what to look for.
right.
Like I know when stuff is coming up and it's like, oh, time to use like a CBT skill, right? Time to like recognize the, thought that is a cognitive error and reframe it and have a corrective thought in place to help remind you to feel better, right? To just like explain that once and be like, hey, like you're stuck in this negative thought pattern. You just need to like think this, right? Like that, it would be, very, very naive and against everything we know about psychology to think that by us having that conversation once, you were going to be like, aha, like, oh, that's the way to resolve this. Just like, I don't know, you were looking for like a grocery store on a map, and like once you found it once, you'd always be able to access it and it would never be a problem again. That's not the kind of learning that needs to happen here, right? It's this practice of continuing to have that same intense emotional experience and getting through it, remembering what we need to do to process, getting support when we need it, and practicing that over and over and over again. I remember we would have conversations on the phone sometimes. You'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you've like told me this before. I'm sorry. Like, why am I still like?" And it's of course, we're still doing it. That's
Yeah.
like we don't need to feel bad for having the same situation replicate even after we've dealt with it once, because that's kind of what attachment is all about. It's this early wiring that creates a blueprint for how we manage these situations. And
Yeah.
that is deep, deep, deep. It's not like one deviation from the blueprint resolves whatever the like emotional challenge is. It's just one little like, one little moment. And we need many, 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 many of those with a good support system and good reflection and good proactive thinking. And you did this, right? You over the course of like the last year with some of the like stresses that you were dealing with, I feel like you fully got to the other end of the like emotional distress and really got to a place where you were feeling better in a consistent way and able to just kind of have it be, what we call like thoroughly processed to the point where
Yeah.
if you think about it and it comes up, it's not like, oh no, I'm like going through a crisis again and I'm getting triggered. Like it
No.
like ran its course.
Yeah.
And the reason why it ran its course is because each time it came up, you kept like leaning in and trying to figure out like, how do I actually deal? Like I have to get on the other end of this. And you kept working with your feelings and getting support when you needed to and practicing the stuff that you knew you needed to practice. And it grew. It grew the way like, I don't know, a tree that we plant in the yard will grow with water and sunlight, right? You gave it the water and sunlight. You can't overnight be like, why isn't this seed 6 feet tall? It's like, because it takes time and tending to it. But that's what
Right.
you did. And you're in a different place because of it.
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate that. Um, it's been a hard year and it did I noticed another thing around attachment, which is really interesting. A lot of this stuff I felt like I had fully gotten over in my life, the attachment stuff that we're kind of talking about here. And I was in a really good place for a couple of years. Then I found myself in ongoing stressors that were overwhelming. And I noticed that if you stay in situations that keep you stressed
Yeah.
and things start to compound on top of that, the
Yeah.
same neural pathway is being activated. You're in fight or flight constantly, and it will start to reattach to that part of you that was anxious,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that anxious attachment will result in an anxious experience in all the relationships that you formed. And it everything's connected, is what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
So if you build up your life and you build yourself up and then you find yourself in a situation that you got kind of stuck in for years maybe. And in my case it was 4 years. And then there were compounding stressors on top of that. It for me it reactivated everything I thought I had fully processed because it was such a familiar feeling from my past.
Yeah.
And so the memory networks are being tapped into again and they're becoming real again, right? And a lot of what I've had to do is I've had to sit there and think about what is this feeling that I'm having? Where is it really coming from? Let's sort out what's real and what's not. What's something I need to address and what's something I need to let go of, right?
Yeah.
And you helped me with that quite a bit. I really appreciate it, Dan. Seriously. I couldn't see
Thank
straight
you.
for a while. I couldn't. Not for myself, at least.
Uh,
I mean,
well, and and I think you were talking exactly about like the reason why that was so difficult is because it wasn't just this one time like traumatic moment. It was this persistent, repetitive, ongoing, trauma getting re-traumatized again and again, like more and more moments and incidents where it just kept happening, right? It's like it's one thing to have an experience where you get abused one time, and that's awful, and it leaves a mark, and we have to process through it, and it takes a long time. But if that's happening, on a regular, like weekly, more than weekly, it's we get a compounding experience like you're talking about, and it's extremely like damaging, right?
it really
It's
is.
very like that's where like that PTSD kind of energy can really become the dominant place so that any little reminder just brings us like right back there and we're just overthinking and spinning and our nervous system is in like a five-alarm fire mode.
Right.
And it takes a tremendous amount of work over a long period of time to like heal from that and process that and work through the emotions. And that's what your journey was this past like year. And it's been a long one. And like you've got pep in your step, right? You've got some like good energy. You're back to like I think what feels like, sort of the comfortable you and the way you want to be processing emotions and experiences.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it is. It's like the residual of everything I still feel,
Yeah.
Um, but it's about how you internalize. How do you, when you're processing something, what's really important is at the end to find a way to make meaning of it for yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like there's an ongoing like sense of resentment, sense of like, you know, feeling wronged. Bad things have happened. I have also been mean and bad in life, and we're human. And for me, it's important to just recognize that people have limitations and they don't know what they're doing to people sometimes. And they think they're right when they're absolutely wrong. And I've also been that person growing up. And it took a lot of maturing for me to get to the point where I'm at now. A lot of self work. I remember the type of work I had to do. It involved like compulsions at times, like visceral compulsions to like get down to the most vulnerable parts of me in therapy and actually understand myself and let things go and be open to new things,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people won't do that. A lot of people are going to go through life unconscious and they're going to use their coping mechanisms and they're going to do things that displace their anger from their own lives onto others. And your job is to figure out truthfully what is yours to hold, what is yours to change, and what is something to let go of here? Where are your limits?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a sort of broad stroke of what that's all about is this idea that when we're in a sort of mentally fit, healthy place, our nervous system most of the time will be pretty chill. Our emotional landscape will be pretty rich, right? We'll be able to have empathy and compassion for people that we're close to and people that are just sort of like acquaintances. And if that's not going on, right? If we're constantly anxious, our nervous system is revved up. If we're feeling like extreme emotions that are hard to manage, whether it's depression or anger, loneliness, whatever it is. Um, those are cues that, there's some work we can do in those areas. And I think, earlier on in our sort of cultural understanding of mental health, there was just this idea that like, mm, you should just kind of pop into your adult brain and your consciousness and be this like fully formed human and not have any stuff that needs to like be worked on or any ways that you need to grow.
Super realistic.
Right, right. And what I think we're coming to understand is that mental fitness is like physical fitness, right? It's an ongoing journey.
Yeah.
Our body changes over time. We have to tend to different things over time physically if we want to stay sort of fit and healthy and mobile. There's a lot of work we got to do. And if we want to be emotionally fit and healthy and be able to have, a lot of ways to adapt psychologically to situations, we got to keep practicing, right? We got to keep working on it because,
Because it will atrophy if
yeah,
you and mental atrophy looks like panic attacks, anxiety, depression. When you let go of the things you need to do to fortify these areas mentally and emotionally, or you're just bearing too much for too long. I mean, I'm not blaming people for feeling the way they feel, but you got to find something that works and something needs to change.
right, right. Um, I know we got to wrap up in a sec here, but I just want to demute the audience so we can just hear their reaction to this amazing podcast that we've done. Uh-oh, here we go. I love it.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. We
I
really
need
appreciate it. We appreciate it. All right, let's turn them off again. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, comment, and we hope this was useful. Have a good one.
Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes. Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. Listen to them anytime you're coming unglued. Time for therapy dudes. Time for therapy. Time for therapy. Time for therapy dudes.
How do I make it stop? Where is the end record? Oh my
You
gosh.
stopped it.
Oh, is it not recording? No, I think it's still recording.
Oh, it is recording. Okay. We are so professional.
Thank you
We're
again for
so good at
listening.
this.